This week on Focus North, Marie Wilson brings you a special report. The final land rights agreement with the people of the Western Arctic Beaufort Sea region. The vote that made history.
I'm glad they want to sell the land claim, and you know, we've been waiting long enough, about 14 years. Wait too long, eh?
15 trapping seasons have come and gone since the native people of the Western Arctic first organized to get their Aboriginal rights recognized by the Government of Canada. During those years, the 2,500 Inuvialuit have sometimes felt that, like their annual take of polar bear and white fox, the people too have been left hanging. Protect such tradition, at the same time as preparing them for new steps forward in a changing north. After more than 14 years of waiting, more than 14 hours of celebrating, it started in the afternoon, Tuesday, June the 5th. A day that will go down in Inuvialuit history.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kitty Hall in Tuktoyaktuk. I was told that today is the dawn of a new era because somebody finally saw Cope's president Peter Green smoking store-bought cigarettes instead of his own. We'll all be a witness to and be participants in a moment in history, and I ask you to keep that in mind. It's something that you can feel is about to break open after today. And it's something that brings kind of a lump to your throat.
A moment in history to be celebrated in style. The last wrinkles had finally been ironed out of the Cope Land Claims Agreement. With the RCMP standing on guard, this was to be the formal signing. The Western Arctic rarely sees so many suits and dresses.
I'd like to call on the Nunavut MLA, Nellie Cornier.
I assure you, this is not my dress. But one of the things I promised all the negotiators is that whenever we got our final agreement, I'd really dress up like a real lady. But I always told them that you can't boss people around when you're not in pants and a little bit sweaty. But I'm doing this tonight just for all the people who work so hard and the negotiators. And I'll give it back to Frida Lester when I'm finished with it. But I would like to say to Canada, on behalf of the people of Tuktoyaktuk and the Western Arctic region and our friends who have come here from areas right close to our region, that we are important. And it may be a frontier land, but we are important because we hold something very precious and dear, because basically it's an area very few people have seen, and it's a very big area and a beautiful area. So with all the people who took part, and I don't know how and how long we could mention everybody, because from the smallest people in Tuk and all the communities to the oldest people, we still have a lot of work to do. But in all the controversy and in all the ways that we try to resolve our differences and make things the way we feel we could move, I don't believe there is one person that did not participate. They did participate. And we were never, as an organization, afraid of people who felt that they had a different view, because we learned from that. And that's the Inuvialuit way. The people who worked at it really tried to reflect the total opinion of people.
John Munro has been crisscrossing the country, polishing his speaking skills in the race for next weekend's Liberal leadership nomination. In the most powerful and emotional speech he ever made in the North, he agreed with Nellie Cornier. Getting the Cope Aboriginal Rights Settlement had been a tough job.
Nellie did such a thorough job, ladies and gentlemen, of going through everybody that perhaps it's not necessary for me to add any further names. I think that it's a tremendous achievement that's been obtained today. I just like to perhaps make a few personal comments. You know, ladies and gentlemen, when I first became minister, one of the first things I had to undertake was a journey up to Inuvik. And the primary purpose of the journey was to meet the negotiators for COPE. And I'll always remember that meeting. Sam, you will too, and I know Nellie and Bob will. Nellie held forth in a very articulate fashion, but she was anything but kind. She was almost vicious. I just can't believe how sweet she looked in that dress today. When I recall her demeanor on that particular occasion, but she dressed down the federal government and the people involved in the land claim in COPE in a fashion that I'd not heard expressed in such vivid language for quite some time. But they were tough times, there were acrimonious times, and there were bitter times between the federal government, between myself and some of the COPE negotiators, because they felt I was not seeing things their way. But you know, there was also an exchange of respect. There's also a tremendous determination displayed by the people of COPE. So may I say to Peter Green, COPE, and your predecessor, Peter, Sam Ratty, to Nellie Cornoyer, some of the people I principally had to deal with, Bob Delury, you've really achieved something great for the North, and you've achieved something absolutely tremendous for all of Canada. Because if, you know, we can settle these claims and show good faith, and here we've finally arrived at a final settlement, the first north of 60, the first comprehensive claim north of 60. But it's a sign out there to the Dene Métis, and it's a sign out there to the Inuit of the Eastern Arctic that the government can move and will respond to Native people's aspirations. And COPE has shown that leadership by establishing a first here. What a marvelous achievement that is. And what a happy day this must be for all of you. It's something I would not have missed. I want you to know that personally, I find it one of the most rewarding experiences of my public life. It's an experience I will never forget, and I want to say to the Inuit people, the Inuvialuit people of Northern Canada, thank you for giving me that tremendous sense of pride. Thank you very, very much.
John Munro is bound to be remembered in the North. He's unlikely to become Liberal leader, but he'll be known as the Indian Affairs Minister able at last to nail down a land claims agreement in the Northwest Territories. The signing of the official documents.
Peter Green.
The COPE land claims package is finally wrapped up. The exchange of gifts.
The tapestry was made by Agnes Cooktanna from Holman Island.
to commemorate the signing of the final agreement on the settlement of the West Arctic claim, presented by myself.
The party is on. It's been a long time between dances. In 1978, 3 ministers ago, Hugh Faulkner joined in the celebration dance in Sachs Harbor. An agreement in principle had been signed, and people thought the land claims job would be done in a year. The next 6 years proved them wrong. There was opposition to the proposed deal from a new federal conservative government and from the government of Yukon.
As it put the entire Yukon coastline under the control of COPE in respect to future development. We remain adamantly opposed to it, and by we, I mean Yukoners, both native and non-native.
In terms of the 78 agreement, there was a wilderness area to embrace the whole North Slope. That's been basically removed to half of the North Slope. The remaining half comes under sort of as strict an environmental screening and review and control mechanism as one can devise.
The business community and neighboring native groups also had concerns. In the case of the Dene Nation, it was about the overlapping areas between the Cope and Dene claims. This, like all the other concerns, had to be resolved before a final agreement.
There were 3 areas around which this negotiation took place. One was land, the second was wildlife harvesting, and the third was participation in the institutions that are going to manage wildlife. On the matter of land, each of the native groups is now going to have 700 square miles, a little north and a little south of Aklavik, and how they sort that out between themselves, they are going to negotiate that. Mainly, it will be the Dene Métis will be south of Aklavik, and the Inuvialuit north of Aklavik, but they'll be contiguous one to the other, and they're neighbors, and they live together, and they live in the same community, and we're very confident that they will sort it out. In the event there's some unresolved issues about that, the minister will be called in to arbitrate that, and both sides have agreed to accept his decision on that if there are differences. On the matter of wildlife harvesting, it seems to me that that's virtually resolved. The matter of reciprocal rights in relation to that will take place after the Dene Métis have reached their agreement. The third area on institutions, from what I've seen here and the things we've signed, recommended to the minister for his signature, does resolve the problem of the institutions. So this has got to be seen as a major breakthrough.
After all the delays and some changes, the final Cope land claims package contains what the Inuvialuit say are the 3 most important things: land, wildlife harvesting and management, and money, in that order. First, the land. It's an area of beauty and diversity, from the cliffs of Nelson Head on Banks Island, to the flats of the Yukon North Slope, to the pingos of the Mackenzie Delta, the only ones in the world. The Cope Agreement recognizes Inuvialuit ownership of 35,000 square miles of this land. That's much more land per person than any other treaty or land claim in Canada.
I think that's a lot of land, 35,000 square miles. And when we first started the negotiations, people wanted land. That was the main thing that they wanted.
The land they'll own is classified into 2 types. For most of it, called 1B land, the Inuvialuit own only the surface, not the resources below. They're to have a say, though, before any development in this area. The other type of land, 5,000 square miles, is called 1A land. The Inuvialuit will own the surface and any oil, gas, or minerals underneath. Selecting land was one of the hardest parts of settling the land claim. The Inuvialuit had to choose from lands with no proven resource wealth. Originally, Cope had wanted royalties on all the non-renewable resources in their settlement region, an area about the size of Ontario, twice the size of the Yukon. But after so many years, they've settled for far less. In the Beaufort region, where oil and gas business has already changed the look of communities such as Tuktoyaktuk, some say it's unfair the Inuvialuit didn't get more. Ironically, it was the race to get at that oil and gas which led to land claims in the first place.
It's a long story. It was way back in 67 when two planes came into Inuvik, all loaded with these geologists and oil men coming in to see coming in to look over the Tuk area, the valley, and they came in and so they asked me if I'd go on one plane and show them around. The way they were talking in the plane, that this is just where they're going to find the oil, right here.
So you're saying then that the reason that it started was because you wanted to get in on some of the oil and gas activity?
Yeah. So we didn't leave the people out of it completely. You know, that they have an organization, so that they could get involved in it too. And then that actually led to land claims, what we signed today.
Some of the community representatives say nothing has really been gained in the land section of the claim. The Inuvialuit will now officially own 35,000 square miles, but they traditionally used 2.5 times that much. But they say at least now they'll be protected from losing any more than they already have.
Falls at our land, but when you look at it, that there's more people coming north every year, and it's a few years from now, if we don't have that land nailed down, you know, we wouldn't really have land.
So I don't think it's going to change anything, because it's everybody's looked after. It's just that the Inuvialuit themselves will have a little more say on their own land.
The only time the government recognizes anything is when it's put down on paper.
So it's not that you have any more land, it's to prevent yourselves from losing any more than you've already lost.
Now that we've got it, I hope we keep it.
Keep it because it takes a lot of land to make a living in this part of the north. Trap lines may be over 100 miles long, with more than 1,000 traps per line. That's how much is needed to keep the spring clotheslines full of winter furs. For the Inuvialuit, the traditional economy and the history, too, is based upon the land and the sea. Old schooners such as this one in Sachs Harbor have a noble past. At one time, they did a summer run for the year's supplies to a Klavik, more than 500 kilometers south on the mainland. The rest of the year, the people here on Banks Island were on their own, dependent on the wealth of the sea and the land. Today, that wealth of wild food and furs is still treasured. So in the land claims agreement, COPE has charted a course that leads to more local control over wildlife through the Inuvialuit Game Council.
The hunters and trappers, they know what the animals are on their land, so we think that they're more fit, you know, to make some decisions.
Do you get to actually make decisions, or is it advice simply?
Well, it's advice that they give, and it's on certain, like open seasons and setting of quotas that will be set jointly with the government. If we set them with a territorial government, that's a lot more than we've had before.
Being a hunter and trapper the past 14 years and learning from the older people, I think that the main thing that they really agree with the final agreement is that we can manage our own renewable resources now.
Managing the resources which they've used throughout the seasons, throughout the ages, and still today. There's also a guarantee of exclusive hunting rights on some species, preferential hunting on others.
The only time the preferential really comes in, I guess, is when there's not enough to really go around. Well, if the Inuvialuit needs the whole quota, then that Inuvialuit will have to take that first take, and then after that, what's left over, then it goes up for the others.
The third and perhaps most controversial part of the Cope Land Claims Agreement is the money. It comes in 3 pots. $45 million was agreed to in 1977 as compensation for the traditional lands the Inuvialuit have had to give up. Today that money is worth about $90 million. There's another $10 million for business development and $7.5 million for social programs. Some Inuvialuit, including a group led by a non-native, Lyle Trimble of Inuvik, felt the money should be paid out to individuals to invest on their own.
Okay, this is the last settlement, okay?
But 2/3 of the eligible people voted in favor of the Cope Agreement. It sets out a different way of handling the cash. To manage Inuvialuit land and money, there will be 11 key bodies. At the heart of it all is the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation. It's similar to the Makivik Corporation that was set up in northern Quebec after the James Bay Agreement there. All Inuvialuit land and money will first go to this non-profit corporation called the IRC. From there, it will go to 3 other corporations. The land will go to the Inuvialuit Land Corporation. It will own the land. As for the dollars, part will be transferred to the Inuvialuit Investment Corporation to make interest and grow. Other money will go to the Inuvialuit Development Corporation, or IDC. It will set up more businesses, such as Ulu Foods and the taxi and airline companies which already exist. But the control of the land, investment, and development corporations, the kinds of businesses they get into, how they invest, and so on, that control stays with the central body, the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation. Any profits these businesses make will be held by a 5th body, a special Inuvialuit trust. But once again, it'll be up to the Regional Corporation to decide if and when those profits are reinvested or paid out to Inuvialuit beneficiaries who are 18 years or over. But how do individual Inuvialuit fit in, and what do they get out of all this land and money? That's where the other 6 bodies fit in. 1 community corporation for each of the 6 communities in the Inuvialuit claim. Each community has a 1/6 say in all the decisions the regional corporation makes. In each community, the local people control their own corporation and the Inuvialuit lands in and around their community. And it's these 6 community corporations that come together to control the central body we started from, the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation.
For a small community like this, the majority of our people don't know how to read and write. And it's hard for them to really realize, what we're getting ourselves into. I'm just hoping that when they do form the corporation, that it's formed with a good number of people from the north or from the Inuvialuit that are profitable businessmen who know what they're dealing with, that can get the rest of the Inuvialuit on their feet.
A lot of people expect some benefits right off the start, but this whole claim is for the benefit of all the Inuvialuit, and it might be a few years before it shows. But
except perhaps for the old people. The Cope leadership has been instructed to look into cash payments as soon as possible for the elders. Years ago, this was the only store in Sax Harbor. It was owned by Fred Carpenter and his wife Agnes. Fred was the founder of this community. Just before he died this spring, he was wondering whether he'd ever live to see the day his land claims were settled. He missed it by 2 months. Many say it is the old people who deserve more than anyone else to get something out of land claims. But in the 14-year wait, several have passed away and missed their chance. With the final settlement, the elders who are left may still have a chance.
I guess basically after the legislation comes through, really it is up to the Inuvialuit in the communities to decide how and when they will pay out the old people some sort of social assistance. And we all realize, the team that has negotiated this package and the people in the communities all know that in giving out assistance, the elders would get priority.
Well, I'm going to use it for food and, food and a little bit something for my family before I go away. That's all I'm hoping about.
Michael, what did you used to be able to buy for $1?
Well, it's long ago, you used to, in a Klavik there, the old pepper, they got a restaurant there, used to have a full meal and 75 cents and some more, right? Now these days, we can't even buy it. Lucky to buy a package of chocolate bar right now for 75 cents. Eh? Right now, that the dollar, that's no more good. You can't get nothing in the heart now. Everything a lot of change, eh?
Land, wildlife, some advisory powers, money. The Committee for Original Peoples Entitlement is satisfied with the contents of this claims package.
Ours is the only negotiated package in the whole of the NWT. So I think, being first is very hard and something that we were proud to achieve.
Groundwork is done. Now it's up to the younger generation to get busy, get education, training, and take over.
To take over no longer on the sidelines, but in the big leagues of an increasingly competitive North. These young people know they need more training, but they too are hoping for a break from land claims. What would you like to see better or improved?
More jobs, I guess.
COPE leaders are confident they're on their way now. It may not always be smooth sailing, but with the final agreement behind them, it's downhill from here.
If everything is handled the way it is in the package by the present and the future Inuvialuit, it becomes a very valuable package to build a very strong region. All the legwork has been done, and it's up to the Inuvialuit within the communities and in the region to make something of it. The sky's the limit. With good management, with good people, you can build, with what we have now in the package, you can really build something that will last as long as the world turns around.